My son came to me with a smile. Not the fake one he wears now, but the one I raised, that warm, wide-eyed grin that once made every sacrifice feel worth it. He said, "Mom, let's just get a few things in order. A little paperwork, nothing serious, just to make things easier." And I believed him. Of course I did. I raised that boy by myself after his father died, packed his lunches, paid his tuition, held his hand through every failure until he learned how to fly. So I signed. He said it was a simple power of attorney, something to help him manage bills when the time came. But what I signed was the deed to my house, the home I worked 3 jobs to keep, the floors I scrubbed so his shoes could stay clean, the door I never locked when he came home late from parties. Smelling like decisions I forgave. 3 months later, I heard the knock. He stood in the doorway, not alone, but with his wife, Linda, the same woman who once offered to help me throw out old furniture, the one who never called me Mom. "Only Eileen," he said, "we're moving in." Not, "Can we help you?" Not, "Is there space for us?" Just a declaration. They moved in with boxes and blueprints, ripped out the rose garden, painted the walls gray, turned my sewing room into her office, and then, day by day, started to erase me. What I thought was shared space became territory. What I thought was love became leverage. They told me it was better this way, that I'd be more comfortable in the garage, until they could sort things permanently. But here's the thing about mothers: we notice everything, even betrayal hiding behind a hug. They thought I was old, soft, slow. They didn't know I was watching, tracking, planning. They never saw it coming, because while they were filing me away, I was building the case that would bury them. This isn't just a story about a house. It's about trust broken, dignity stolen, and justice served, even if it arrives late. And when it did, it knocked louder than they ever did. Now they don't live here. Not anymore. Asterisk, I didn't grow up with much. My parents were immigrants, hard hands, quiet pride. They taught me that dignity isn't given, it's earned, and that you protect your family even when it costs you something. Maybe especially then. So when life took my husband in a car accident, I did what generations of women have always done. I got up, wiped my face, and got to work. I raised Daniel alone from the time he was 7. Gave him the best of me, even when I only had scraps left. When I couldn't afford tutoring, I found a second job. When rent went up, I canceled cable and sold my wedding ring to keep us afloat. Birthdays, graduations, every little victory. He had them because I broke myself into smaller and smaller pieces so he could stand tall. I asked for nothing in return, not help, not credit, not even a you. So when he came to me with concern, saying he just wanted to make things easier, I thought, this is love returned. This is the moment when everything I gave finally gives something back. He said the paperwork was protection. "What if something happens to you?" he asked. "We just want to be prepared, Mom." Kind eyes, calming tone. He even made me chamomile tea while I signed. But this wasn't concern. It was choreography, a slow dance into betrayal. Disguised as love, they didn't hand me forms. They handed me lies, camouflaged in duty. Dressed in legalese, and I walked right into it with open hands. As a mother, what they stole wasn't just property. It was the belief that my son still saw me as his mother, and not a delay in his wife's investment strategy. Because to Linda, I wasn't a person. I was square footage, and Daniel, he just stood there, watching, choosing silence over spine. Older generations grow up thinking, if we stay kind, if we stay useful, the world, or at least our children, will take care of us. But somewhere along the way, care turned to calculation. Devotion became data, and we, people like me, became inconvenient speed bumps for the lives our children think they're entitled to. Do you know what it feels like to be erased by someone you raised? To be thanked with paperwork and promises, and then pushed into the corner of the very house you paid for? Let me tell you something. Kindness without boundaries becomes a blueprint for betrayal, and trust, when given to Isley, becomes currency for the people who mistake your love for leverage. They thought I wouldn't. They noticed that I'd be too fragile to fight, too old, too tired, too broken. What they forgot. I come from people who built from nothing, and I've lost more than they've ever had. So when they tried to bury me beneath my own generosity, they forgot I knew how to climb. But what happens next? That changes everything. Asterisk, her name is Linda, and from the beginning, something about her didn't sit right. Not because she was loud or rude or even particularly disruptive. In fact, it was the opposite. She was polished. Too polished. Linda spoke like every sentence had been pre-approved by a PR team. Always smiling. Always professional. And always scanning the room, calculating. She had a way of speaking through you instead of to you. Like she was interviewing life instead of living it. When she and Daniel got serious, I tried to be supportive. She wasn't warm like I was used to, but I told myself, different doesn't mean bad. She was ambitious, driven. Good for him, I said more than once. At least he wouldn't be alone. That was my fear for Daniel, that he'd inherit my isolation. I still remember the first time she walked into my house. She took one slow glance around the living room, her eyes lingering on the floral print couch I'd reupholstered myself, and said, wow, so cozy. This is definitely a legacy home. Just a bit dated. Legacy home. Dated words, wrapped in sunshine but laced with poison. Later that night, when Daniel went to grab something from the garage, she turned to me and asked, sweet as syrup, have you ever considered renting this place out? You know, for some passive income in retirement? You could get top dollar. I laughed nervously and told her no, I hadn't. I liked my home, thank you very much. Then she said, this house is too big for one person. That stuck with me. I didn't say anything to Daniel that night, or the next. I didn't want to cause tension. I wanted to be liked. But slowly, over months, the comments piled up. Wouldn't it be easier to live somewhere with less upkeep? You deserve comfort at your age, Eileen. You're going to need help managing this place eventually. It wasn't advice. It was a sales pitch. And Daniel. He soaked it all in like scripture. He started parroting her phrases about simplifying, downsizing, planning for the future. The boy I raised, who once told me this house was magical because the rain sounded like lullabies on the roof, now couldn't look at it without dollar signs filling his eyes. I don't. Think Daniel started as the villain in this story. Not at first. He's not heartless. Just impressionable, weak-willed. And when you mix a weak will with a strong manipulator, what you get is a weapon that doesn't even know it's loaded. Linda didn't need to tear me down. She let him do it for her. All she had to do was highlight how hard I was working, how vulnerable I was becoming, all sprinkled with that carefully manufactured concern. Your mom's so independent. It's inspiring. But have you thought about what happens if she falls alone? It makes you sound like a saint, doesn't it? If anyone challenged her, she could act offended. I'm just trying to help. Every predator thinks they're a provider. Every manipulator calls themselves a mirror, Daniel once told me. Not long after they moved in, that Linda had been researching refinance options on the house. He said it like she'd found a golden key for us. For our future, that's when I knew this wasn't about safety. This was an asset, and I was dead weight. The kindness didn't disappear overnight. It just got quieter, less consistent. Until one morning, I walked into my kitchen, and Linda was giving a virtual tour of it to a real estate agent on FaceTime. She saw me and said, "Oh, don't worry, Eileen, just seeing what your home might be worth on the market." For curiosity. I didn't argue. I just turned around and left the room because by then, I understood the plan. They weren't asking me to leave, they were nudging. They weren't stealing my home. They were liberating it from me. They talked about helping me. Right before pushing me into the garage, with my name still on the mailbox, with my photos still on the walls they now referred to as ours, and the worst part isn't the coldness. It's that they convinced themselves they were doing the right thing. That's what entitlement Looks like when it dresses up in concern, it doesn't scream, it smiles. But what they? For God is that glassy smiles crack, and when they do, you hear everything they were hiding, because greed is loud, no matter how much sugar you pour on top. And in their silence, I started listening closely, carefully, because betrayal like this doesn't ask for forgiveness. It demands a response. I've never needed much. Not really. Not diamonds, not cruises, not some big retirement dream in Florida. All I ever wanted was a roof that wouldn't leak, a warm kitchen with coffee in the pot, and a son who remembered how much I gave so he could stand on his own 2 feet. I was 29 when Daniel was born. He wasn't planned, but he was the best surprise of my life. He came into the world with a full head of hair, a set of lungs that wouldn't quit, and eyes that seemed too wide. It's too curious for someone just 5 minutes old. His dad, Mark, loved him in his own quiet way. And then one rainy afternoon, just 6 months after Daniel's 7th birthday, a drunk driver ran a red light. I got the call we all hope never comes. A wrapped-up apology in a man's voice over the phone. There's been an accident. He didn't make it. From that moment on, it was just me and the boy. We didn't have help. There were no family savings, no grandparents stepping in. I worked 2 jobs, day shift receptionist, night shift cleaner, and still managed to make pancakes on Sundays. I learned how to sew patches into his jeans so no one at school had to know we couldn't afford new ones. I taught myself how to fix a leaky faucet, how to navigate financial aid forms, and how to make mac and cheese feel like a celebration. I never took vacations. The house. I paid it off with years of sacrifice, delayed doctor visits, skipped birthday cakes for myself, and more cans of soup than I'd like to admit. But I did it. For him, every time he brought home a spelling bee ribbon or passed a math test, I clapped like he'd won the lottery. Every time he cried over something small, I reminded myself that being strong didn't mean demanding silence. I wanted him to grow gentle and sure of himself, something I never had the luxury to be. And when he got into college, I cried alone in the laundry room. Happy tears, yes, but tired ones too. I gave and gave and gave, not because I expected anything back, but because that's just what love does. Fast forward a couple decades. I'm in my 60s. Daniel is married. I'm told I need to start thinking about my future. Linda brings up retirement savings at Thanksgiving. Daniel talks about simplifying, moving into a condo somewhere easier. At the time, I thought, isn't this what we raised them for? To have better roofs than ours? Softer landings? So when he showed up with paperwork to manage things, you know what I saw? I saw my little boy holding out a safety net, wanting to return the favor. I didn't even read most of it. Just flipped to the yellow tabs he'd marked. His face looked earnest, tired, responsible. He patted my shoulder and said, "This is just to make sure you're taken care of." And I believed him. I didn't sign away my house. I signed everything I had left. To someone I thought loved me, I signed memories. I signed my name off the only stability I had. And I did it wearing slippers, thinking I was lucky to have a son like Daniel. Old age makes us vulnerable, but not in the ways people think. It's not about weakness in the bones. It's the weight on the heart. The way we still choose trust, even when we should choose caution. People love to share quotes about honoring your elders. They put cute linen font statements on social media about respecting the ones who raised you. But behind closed doors, where boxes in their garages dot costs on a spreadsheet, obstacles to their freedom, we get labeled stubborn. We refuse to leave our homes. Problematic when we ask about the papers we're signing, and in the way when our mere presence messes with their renovation plans. Mothers, especially single ones, get told we're martyrs when we give up everything. But the moment we ask for anything in return, we're called burdens. Let me make one thing very, very clear. I have no guilt about what I gave, but I have infinite rage about what was taken from me because I didn't offer my house. It was stolen. In slow motion, gift-trapped in gaslighting, and what's worse than losing your house? Losing your sense of place. Losing the belief that the child you raised with your bare hands wiped his nose, read him bedtime stories, prayed for him every night, would protect you. Not package you out like expired milk. But mothers don't forget. We remember the lies, the half-truths, the carefully worded pushes toward the door. And when the time comes, we don't forgive either, because we know how to endure. And more importantly, we know when to act. You push a mother into a corner and one day, she gets up. Not loud, not cruel, just precise. And I promise you this, I stood in that garage holding on to what was left of my dignity. They thought they'd won, but they didn't know. That was the day. I started watching. That was the night I started planning. Asterisk. They didn't unpack like renters. They arrived like owners. Boxes stacked where my bookcase once stood. New furniture delivered within the week. Linda walked through the hallways like she was inspecting a rental property, not moving into her mother-in-law's home. Not once did she ask where she should place things. She announced it. By day 5, my space had turned into their mission. My framed photos were replaced with abstract art and minimalist mirrors. The curtains I stitched myself were stuffed in a box marked Donate. Linda told me. Flatly, we'll bring the house into this century. And Daniel just nodded. He didn't speak much. Especially not to me. Always tapping something into his phone. Always acting too tired to care. My bedroom, my sanctuary, was rebranded the shared main suite. I was told I'd be moving to the smaller guest room just for a little while. Within days, even that was taken. Linda claimed she needed it for her home office. She opened the closet and said, honestly, we need the storage anyway. They put me in the garage. No bed frame. Just a mattress flattened on concrete. My winter coats shoved under a sheet of plywood. A lamp with no shade. Linda said we had to make room. There's just not that much square footage. That house has 3 bedrooms. My things were stuffed into black garbage bags. Not boxes. Asterisk garbage bags. Asterisk just like you'd pack up a stranger's things. Or someone's after an eviction. And still, I stayed quiet. I journaled. I smiled around them when I had the strength. I cooked what little room I had in the kitchen allowed. Most of my meals were met with, "Oh, we already ate." Linda once threw out my leftover soup. It clashed with the smell of her candles. The worst part wasn't how my body was being pushed out. It was how invisible I became. They stopped saying good morning. They no longer asked about my day. The only time Linda addressed me directly was to complain about housework or remind me that I was using too much hot water. They treated me like I was a tenant in default. One night, I overheard Linda on the phone laughing. She said, "We'll see about putting her somewhere more manageable. Maybe some kind of community living." Daniel didn't interrupt, and that was the moment something cracked. Not like a scream, not even tears. I just stood there in the garage, looking at this sad little pile of trash bags with my handwriting on them, and stopped being shocked. I started thinking. I started remembering every hum-through insult. Every door that shut just before I could speak. Every line delivered under the breath with a smile at the edge. Every "we're just trying to help." Every "it'll be more comfortable downstairs." Every "she doesn't even use most of the house anyway." And I realized they thought they had one. That I'd roll over and surrender because it wasn't violence, because it was paperwork and politeness, because what they stole wasn't cash or jewelry, it was space, dignity, legacy. They thought undoing a lifetime of sacrifice could be as quiet as sliding furniture across the floor, but what they didn't understand is that you can only bruise someone's pride so many times before she gets back up. And I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake, so I picked up my phone and I called. Someone who knew the law, and I told her everything. Cue the silence. Right before the beat drops, her name was Emma Patel. Young, mid-30s, maybe, but sharp, deliberate. She dressed like someone who had already won the case by breakfast and was just here to watch the paperwork catch up. When I first met her, I almost apologized for wasting her time. I told her maybe I should just let it go. Maybe this was just how things happen when you age. She looked me in the eyes and said, "No, Mrs. Thornton, this isn't how anything should happen. This is exploitation. We're going to undo it." From that sentence on, I said yes to everything. Emma asked for every scrap of paperwork, every document Daniel had me sign, everything the bank sent after I was cut off from the mortgage, every message. I handed it to her in a brown envelope sealed so tightly it nearly tore. Inside that envelope lived the road back to my name. We filed suit quietly. Elder financial abuse, fraudulent transfer of property, coercion and undue influence, Emma was fast but methodical. It had to feel like nothing was happening. So while Daniel and Linda went about their days reinventing my house, I started collecting everything they said. I recorded them over dinner. "Linda, the trick is to wait until she's totally isolated. Then refinance. Daniel, she's just furniture at this point." I nearly dropped the phone from my lap. I recorded them laughing. I recorded them scheming. I recorded them dismissing me to friends. "Oh, Eileen, she's here technically, but in spirit. Long gone, more pieces came together." A text message where Linda jokingly called herself the new lady of the house. A voice memo in which Daniel told a friend she doesn't even know what she signed. Classic mom trust. It hurts, all of it, but every word made me sharper. Revenge, when it's just rage, is fast and loud and sloppy. But justice, justice, moves quietly. It waits for the right room, the right moment, and then it opens the door and demands to be seen. That room arrived 3 months later. Courtroom 3C. Civil claims. I wore gray. Emma wore black. Linda wore white, like she was attending her own engagement party. Daniel looked like a man who hadn't slept. The judge, no-sense woman with tired eyes, opened the file, glanced at us all, and sighed. Then Emma began. She laid it out like a surgeon performing heart surgery in front of students. Step by step. She started with the power of attorney Daniel had tricked me into signing, but highlighted how the document had been altered from a basic form to include property transfer clauses that weren't disclosed, not bolded, not explained. Then she presented the stack. My metadata logged photos of the documents, my garage sleeping quarters, photos of boxes labeled Eileen's stuff discard. Then came the recordings. Each one played like a slow death knell to Linda's credibility, laughing about flipping. The house once I was out of the way? Check. Boasting that I wouldn't even understand half the legal stuff she signed. Check. Daniel actually saying it's not like she's going to fight us. She's too old to care. Check. The courtroom stayed silent. No gasp. No objection. Just silence. Linda kept pretending, smiling, tilting her head like she was helping an old woman make drama out of nothing. Daniel stared at the desk, didn't lift his head once. Emma ended with the text message where Linda, probably after one too many overpriced wines, typed, "The house is ours now. Can't wait for the old witch to make her final move so I can turn the garage into a yoga studio." The judge leaned back in her chair and stared at them for a full 10 seconds. Then she looked at me. "Double quotes, Mrs. Thornton," she said. "Would you like to make a statement?" I stood up, not shaking, not small. "I trusted my son," I said. "I gave him everything. I wasn't confused. I wasn't senile. I was betrayed. They didn't just take my house. They tried to take my future, stone by stone, smile by smile. And every night I spent in that garage reminded me that people will use your history against you if it benefits their ambition." I paused, looked at Linda, and some people mistake silence for surrender. That was their mistake. The judge nodded once, then her voice rang out, measured, exact, clear enough to make the courtroom echo. "This court finds in favor of the plaintiff. The transfer of deed is void. The property is to be returned to Eileen Thornton, effective immediately. The defendants are hereby ordered to vacate the premises within *14 calendar days." Linda's mouth fell open. No. No, you can't. This is our everything's in motion. Daniel didn't say a word. Not even to me, Emma whispered. It's done. We walked out into the hallway. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't pound. I just felt clean. 2 weeks later, the moving van arrived. Linda screamed at the sheriff. Daniel cried. But not the kind of cry you hear at funerals. The kind you hear when someone loses a position they think they were entitled to. I stood on the porch, silent, strong. They walked past me like I didn't exist. Exactly how they had treated me. As Linda shoved the last box into the truck, she spun around and hissed, "You think you've won? You think you're going to lecture us from your little porch throne?" I didn't even blink. They didn't see it coming, said calmly. Not because I fooled them, but because they never imagined I could win. Asterisk by the end of the month. I could feel the neighborhood humming with something electric. People didn't ask what happened. Most of them already knew. Word travels fast in communities like mine. One neighbor saw the sheriff's car. Another watched the moving van carry out Linda's color-coordinated crates. Someone else overheard Linda yelling about wrongful eviction, but by the time those cardboard boxes hit the curb, asterisk, the story had already gone viral, at least on our block. Asterisk gossip didn't need permission to stretch its legs. Susan, from across the street, baked a casserole she never would have shared with Linda, but was happy to drop off for me. When I opened the door, she handed me the dish and said, "You're a legend now, you know." Everyone's calling it the garage betrayal. I laughed. Actually laughed. A few days later, a screenshot made it into one of the local Facebook groups. Someone had found Linda's professional profile and posted it with the caption, "Beware, gets close to your mom. Tries to own your house." It had over 500 shares asterisk within a week. Then came the fallout. Linda's credit tanked. Turns out trying to refinance a house you don't own and racking up debt for renovations under someone else's name gets flagged real quick. I don't pretend to understand all the mechanics, but what I do know is that she lost her job at a boutique firm downtown. One of her clients found the court documents. The decision had been tagged in an elder abuse newsletter. Daniel fared better, at least on paper. But emotionally, he became a ghost among family. Aunt Marie refused to let him into her home. Cousins he used to throw birthday parties for started cutting him out of group chats. The message was quiet but clear. "We saw what you did. We won't forget it." At first, I kept my head down, told myself justice had been served, and I was ready to move on. But then something unexpected happened. People started calling me. Friends of friends. Women from church. Even a librarian I hadn't seen in years. They all said the same thing. "My daughter's pushing me to sign something. Asterisk, my nephew wants access to my accounts. Asterisk, they said, it's just to help." Asterisk, that's when I realized this wasn't just my story. This was asterisk, a pattern asterisk. Hidden in pleasantries, disguised as concern. So I started speaking up. I shared my experience at the senior center, wrote a column in the community newsletter. I posted on a national elder justice forum under the name FierceCeline54. That post went asterisk semi-viral. Asterisk, the comments flooded in. My mom went through the same thing. "Thank you. I thought I was crazy. But you just described my story. I needed this to finally pack my things and leave." Somehow, I'd become a symbol. A story passed around between tea time and doctor's visits. Not as a warning, but as a wake-up call. People started calling me the grandma with the plot twist. I liked that one. Because let's be honest, I'd written myself into a corner, but I'd also written my way out. What started as humiliation bloomed into transformation. I hosted a small group once a month for older folks who'd been taken advantage of. By family, by friends, by so-called caregivers. We didn't sip bitterness. We mapped out blueprints for boundaries. I told them. Greater than asterisk, you are not disposable. Greater than you are not overreacting. Greater than, and you are not alone, asterisk. The counselor from the case even invited me to speak at a symposium on elder exploitation, stood behind a podium, microphone humming, and said to that room, Greater than asterisk asterisk, they tried to pack me into a garage. But they woke a part of me that doesn't fit in anyone's box. Asterisk, asterisk, after the applause died down, a man came up to me. Quiet, slender, maybe 70, he said. I thought I was the only one, I said. You never were, and I meant it because after everything, after the silence, the betrayal, the shame, I learned something powerful. When people try to erase you quietly, make sure your comeback makes noise. Mine did, and now I drink my tea by the window I chose. I hang pictures on my walls. I open the front door like it's an act of revolution, because Linda and Daniel, they saw a woman winding down. Not once did they wonder, what if she's just getting started? They see it now. There's a strange silence that falls after you win. Not the kind that feels empty. The kind that feels earned. My house is quiet these days. No footsteps overhead. No echo of someone else's choices rattling through the walls. Just peace. Steady, grounded, unshaken peace. But make no mistake, I didn't just win back my home. I reclaimed myself, because this was never just about brick and wood. It wasn't about a deed or a title or who had the bigger voice at the dinner table. This was about something deeper. Something harder to replace. This was about asterisk identity. Asterisk when they tried to push me aside. They weren't just minimizing space, they were minimizing my worth. Pretending that I had aged out of authority. That my value expired somewhere between power of attorney and just trying to help. It's a dangerous thing we're doing, this rapid erasure of the people who made us. The way we mistake aging for obsolescence. The way we wrap betrayal in concern and convince ourselves we're being responsible when really we're just being cruel. I was raised to believe that standing with your family is a sacred thing. But sacred doesn't mean blind. Love doesn't require surrender. And trust without accountability? That's not family. That's imprisonment. I don't owe anyone my silence. Especially not someone who mistook my kindness for weakness. I don't owe anyone forgiveness just because we share DNA, and I don't owe my life's work to those who only learned how to take, because the truth is greater than. It's better to stand alone in your own truth than be surrounded by people who see you as a stepping stone. Greater than it's better to sleep soundly in a quiet home than be tiptoeing around betrayal with a fake smile. And it's far better to be feared for telling your story than pitied for staying small inside of it. I gave Daniel every bit of my heart, my time, my fight. I made sacrifices he'll never fully understand because he never had to make them. That was the whole point. I sacrificed so he wouldn't have to. And still, when he had the chance to honor that legacy, he sold it for convenience. Linda will move on, I'm sure. Someone like her always does. She'll find a new investment, a new target, a new life to decorate with borrowed things. As for Daniel, I hope he remembers what I told him the last time we spoke. I may be your mother, but I am not your mark. You can inherit furniture. You can inherit property, but you cannot inherit entitlement. You have to earn that. With respect, with character, with showing up even when it's uncomfortable. They thought my power was in the past. But what they didn't understand, asterisk, asterisk, a mother never truly puts down her strength. She just waits for the right moment to use it where it counts. Asterisk, asterisk, this wasn't about the house, it was about asterisk, not letting them take my soul with it. Asterisk it was. About the thousands of other people like me. Parents, elders, women, told to stay quiet, stay grateful. Stay in their place. Not anymore. Not me. Not any of us. And to anyone watching this who's been made to feel disposable, who's been silenced, sidelined, or signed away. Asterisk. You matter. Your story matters. Your house, asterisk literal or symbolic, is yours. Asterisk, asterisk, protect it. Speak for it. Fight for it. And last of all, to my son and his wife. No, you don't get to rewrite this chapter. You don't get credit for leaving. When you were forced out, and you certainly don't get to come back when the house is clean and dignified again. Greater than asterisk, asterisk. You don't get to steal from the woman who gave you life and walk away clean. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. They tried to evict me from my own house, but I evicted their entitlement instead. I stood my ground, not with rage, not with revenge, but with clarity, proof, and the quiet kind of power people mistake for weakness until it rises. Let them call it dramatic. Let them gossip. Because stories like mine, they echo in homes everywhere. Different names, different cities, same betrayal. And if this story made you feel something, remember, it's not just my story, it's the story of anyone who's given everything and been dismissed when they had nothing left to give. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, someone you trusted with your heart, your home, your history, you are not alone. Leave a comment. Share your truth. Say what you've never said before. Let's make the silent stories loud, together. Because when one of us speaks up, we open the door for others who've been locked in the same silence. So don't scroll by. Asterisk. Subscribe asterisk. If you believe standing alone is better than bowing to betrayal. Asterisk. Share asterisk if you know someone who needs to be reminded. Asterisk, they are not disposable. Asterisk, this is more than a story. It's a movement. One voice. One house. One mother, and as long as I'm standing, they'll never erase me again. Asterisk, subscribe asterisk. For more stories where the underdog becomes the force no one saw coming, your silence is over. Go tell your story.